thing about when making a movie that I found is that you go through such severe ups and downs. I like it, I like it, I like it. It's okay. Oh, it was all right. And that was actually one of the biggest sort of eye-openers for me, because music videos go by so quickly, you know, and they're on the air and off the air and sort of forgotten. And it's fine and it's fun and you can learn and you can tell little stories, but you're also always sort of ruled by the song, by the tempo, the pace, the tone, the energy of that song. And, you know, for me, the feature film was free.
Yeah, I like that.
You can make a scene any way you want. To me, it's complete freedom. We're gonna follow you up, we're gonna run through the whole action. To the point where you first pull back. I guess I would say that, you know, the only sort of physical difference is just the endurance needed for a feature. You might shoot a video for 5 to 7 days, tops. With this, you know, on a 100-day shoot, you may be on a scene for the first 3-4 days or something, and then at the end of that you go, okay, wow, well that scene's done, but now I've got to live with it for the next 2 years of my life.
Let's do one that's actually fairly wide, like a 17.5 maybe.
In the beginning, I was very, very happy. I knew that I was going to be watched pretty intensely the first couple of weeks. It's a big movie. I'm a first-time director. People didn't know what it was going to be like.
Rehearsal!
We had rehearsed for 3 weeks beforehand, and what we started shooting was the exorcism scene, so we had it planned out perfectly. We had the camera set up. It was lit. On the call sheet, it said we were going to be shooting an hour after call. We were shooting about 10 minutes after call. People hadn't even shown up. So the execs start showing up, producers start showing up. We're on the 3rd and 4th shot of the day. They couldn't believe it.
Francis, you still want him to creep forward?
So we were just super, super prepared to get through that kind of stuff. You know, but there was always a little nervousness at the beginning of every new scene, I think, because there's always, it's kind of an unknown. I know what I want to do, but I also know when I walk on that set and I have 5 actors around me, they're all going to have new ideas.
He can open it, shut it, and go through the gate.
You always get caught off guard, I think, you know, and it's probably because you're caught off guard that you find certain scenes tough that you didn't expect to be tough and certain scenes easy that you expected to be tough. I would say one of the tougher scenes in the movie for me, and I think also for Keanu, is what we call Molly's Burgers, which is really boiled down to 2 people sitting at a counter talking. She's now starting to accept that the world isn't necessarily the way she thought it was, and he's now telling her the way it works. But it was 6 to 8 pages of some pretty thick dialogue in terms of exposition and learning of the rules of the world and the way things work.
Action!
When I was a kid, I saw things humans aren't supposed to see.
And for a movie that has hell and CG creatures and sprinklers going off and shooting and stunts and car wrecks and all this stuff, I mean, you would think 2 people sitting in a counter having a conversation would be an easy night of shooting. And it ended up being one of the more difficult things, and it was just because it's tough when when you're dealing with that much information.
Like that?
No, forward. Yes, that's it.
We shot all of Tilda's stuff at the end of our schedule, so she and Peter worked at pretty much the same time. And they really weren't around for the first 3/4 of the film. And so it was really great to have the 2 of them come in and fresh and excited, and we're all kind of tired of each other and grizzled and, you know, battle weary and all this. And they came in and just had a blast.
I think it's really important that I keep having these classical shapes, like these sort of statues, so that it's not too domestic.
And I still smile every time I watch the scene of the two of them together, because it was so much fun to shoot that. They were just so enthusiastic.
I will smite thee in his honor.
I think also, you know, in the same category, once filming had stopped, was seeing how much you can truly change a movie through editing.
Hey, partway through that line, cut to his POV.
In videos and commercials, you're dealing with such a small project that, you know, editing is somehow more about design than it is about real structure. Because, you know, there's only so many things you can do, and everything's so dictated by the song or the 30 seconds that the editing choices you make don't have quite the same impact as it is on a movie. You know, the idea of like what it does to the movie when you pull one scene out or add this scene back in. You know, what it does as like a ripple effect through the whole thing. That was just a fantastic learning experience for me.
Cut! Great job.
The original script, you know, the opening of the movie did take place in Turkey. You know, it's going to be this big sort of epic shot of coming into Istanbul over the water and ending up on this, you know, at this prison and going inside and finding this guy who's sort of like digging his way out of the cell and comes across the relic and sort of breaks out of this prison and he's being chased by guards who are shooting him, but the bullets aren't affecting, and then he gets hit by the car and runs off. And that was one of the things that got hit by budget, because if we had done the Turkey thing, we would have had a second unit shooting in Turkey, and we would have had, you know, a couple of stage days for interiors and a couple of location days for the exterior. And so it was all moved to Mexico. We shot this opening in about a day and a half, and it ended up being a pretty challenging day. We shot out in the desert, this old Kaiser steel mine, and it's these old sort of ruins, and we added these crosses to these structures, so it looked like these old sort of burnt out churches.
It's got to be a popcorn scare, which means we can't telegraph the car coming into frame. It's got to be like all on the guy, and all of a sudden the car hits him.
That scene took some planning. We had this sort of complex system of both visual and practical effects, you know, trying to work together seamlessly on that day.
You're basically going to walk where that little wedge is dug in the ground and walk straight out. Right? And then what we do is we do another version of that shot with the car hitting that steel post, and then all that stuff gets erased.
They drilled this giant hole into the ground and put this big steel pipe exactly where the body would be when it got hit.
When the guy runs, they'll run right through this mark, right through the center.
Yeah.
And then he had this car that had the engine block taken out, and it had all been weakened.
We're anchoring this down so when it hits in here, everything will buckle instead of flying all over the place. We don't want stuff to fly all over. We want to make it look like the guy, it implodes into him.
And then he had this track system laid out with these hydraulic pumps.
The air ram will be charged with two 2-inch valves at 1,600 psi. The amount of force is 43,000 pounds of force.
And then these air jams would send this car flying into the post.
The wreck itself is so violent that we really can't put anybody in it.
But of course, Jose can handle it. He's a certified stunt articulating dummy.
One last time, is there anybody who is not ready? Rolling. Speed. Set. 3, 2, 1, go!
Good job, man.
Good job. The car crashed so violently that Jose the dummy could only be extracted using the jaws of life.
We have one convertible.
We then had another rig that we brought in because I wanted the back end to actually go up, that this thing stopped so quickly and hit so hard that the back end of the car would rise up in the air and then drop down. And we actually ran into some problems because the back end wasn't going up quickly like it should. You know, if you hit somebody at 60 miles an hour, it kind of eked up there, and then it could drop down just great.
Working on it. Go. Another test. 3, 2, 1, go.
So we ended up having to just shoot the dropping down and end up reversing the film for the lift up.
Action!
Okay. No dust on this one, because I have to reverse it.
Been laying new dust in, so it looked like the force was still going forwards. I was have this edit system, you know, basically following me around during, you know, with the video playback. So I can, as I shoot, start to cut sequences just enough to see whether or not things will work.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I knew by the end of the day that I had the sequence. One of the things that I wanted to do with this movie was really try and set it in a reality. It's based on a comic book, but I did not want it to feel like a comic book movie. And if you look at most artifacts are not these gleaming, chromed out, beautiful kind of, you know, pieces of metal. They tend to be things that are faded and worn or rusty or bent or broken or cracked. Some things are really almost unidentifiable.
I was drawn to this film because you read the script and it's, you know, every prop guy would go, this is really fun to do.
So what's new?
Holy water ampules from the River Jordan.
The holy hand grenades were little vials that actually were Christmas ornaments that were filled with holy water. They were a pretty simple little thing. We came up with all kinds of elaborate ideas, and the director, Francis, went, I think he would have grabbed some household thing. So we just went and got some Christmas ornaments and made these. When we did the scene with Keanu in Hell, where he smashed it against his chest, we made the same prop out of breakaway glass, so it was safe for him to use. Hell apparently doesn't have a lot of water in it, so it's the conduit to get back, so these are rather valuable to him while he's there. When we did the scene with Balthazar getting hit with the holy hand grenade,
That's better.
we made them out of water balloons. That way you could hit him right in the face and there'd be no danger of any accidents.
Jesus didn't die from being nailed to a cross. He was killed by a soldier's spear.
Spear of destiny.
This is actual recreation of the real piece. It's based on an artifact in the Habsburg Museum. We were able to get some very good photographs of it. This is supposedly the spear that pierced Christ's side at the crucifixion, and hence it has great power because it has the blood of Christ on it, literally. But no one really knows if this is actually the spear that pierced the side of Christ. And this was supposedly given to Constantine in the 3rd century, and since then it had a colorful history. At one point, the spear was broken off, the bottom disappeared. They found the bottom 100 years later. They supposedly put the two together with this piece of gold material, and then they took a nail from the true cross and actually inlaid it into the center here and wired it on. So they basically wanted to maximize the holiness of this piece. It disappeared into the hands of Hitler during World War II, and the legend is that whoever owned this spear, whoever wielded it, was invincible in battle. And after the Allies recaptured this, Hitler died 2 hours later in his bunker. One of my favorite props on the show, it's Constantine's lighter, which we made an oversized lighter because the director wanted something that just had a bigger feel. This here is the medal of Saint Benedict, who was the patron saint of fighting witchcraft. We also put a little inscription on the side, which means, let justice be done, though the world is destroyed. It was carved out of brass metal, and we actually used the inside of a real Zippo lighter, because being prop men, we want to make sure it works, and I tell you, there's nothing better than a Zippo, because it lit all the time. It was great. The pack of cigarettes that Constantine smokes, it's a fictional pack of cigarettes, and it's something that Djimon brings back for him because it's a Chinese brand, which translates Yellow River. And we had one of our artists in the art department do up a fantastic little design on it. Looks better than a lot of real cigarette packs. This is a rubber version of some brass knuckles that we made. These are supposedly melted down from holy relics made out of gold, and hence had great powers to them. A little crucifix poured into it, a little filigree, and a lot of Latin lettering.
May God have mercy on you.
We got the Great Book of Latin Inscriptions, and so this was some religious inscriptions from like the 16th century. We put 4 of the 7 deadly sins on each knuckle, and crosses here in the front. We talked about doing some work where they would CG and do makeup effects of little crosses smoldering on Balthazar's face, but I think they pretty much decided that would just be lost in all of his goo.
Come on, you don't need its protection. It'll be like back in the day.
This amulet is what Hennessy uses to protect himself from evil spirits when he travels in the ether. And we were getting tired of doing crosses, so we wanted to do something that was a little different. This is actually based on a symbol for the Holy Trinity that we did a little variant on with a circle and put some archaic lettering onto it, which probably no one will ever see except me.
Think of it as a bulletproof vest.
John, there is no 17th act in Corinthians.
Corinthians goes to 21X in the Bible in hell.
They have Bibles in hell.
The Bible from Hell is a book that Djimon uses to find out who Mammon is and what he's trying to do with the Spear of Destiny. We had an illustrator do up some pictures for us. I went to great lengths to actually write the copy for the script and then have it translated into Latin. The cover's rather obscured at this point, but it's actually wrapped up in plastic in the movie, and it's all covered in like a black slime.
Holy shotgun's pretty good, which I end up wreaking some havoc with, which is fun. Boom.
This prop went through a lot of changes in the film.
We had first thought that it was maybe Constantine who put it together from some of Djimon's old notes, kind of like Leonardo da Vinci, only in your garage. And he would tape a flashlight to an old gun and can of butane, and it would look really funky but be an effective magical tool.
It was sort of a mess. You know, the intentions I think were right going in, but the gun just did not look good. So we then just started to build the different kinds of relics that this gun came from. And then we started to try and unify them so that when they locked together, you could say they were actually originally designed to be pulled apart and put together to form this gun.
In the final film, you don't really see the assembly of it, but we did one scene where the prop is assembled. So actually all these are different components of holy relics in Djimon's lair.
No, you're not supposed to be up here.
This would snap together, like that. Pull the cross out.
So we did a test with it on a microwave system.
That snaps in. Like your Dragon's Breath. Fuck.
27. 19.
There you have it. The holy shotgun.
Parts standing clean.
It was a hard prop to build because it's about, 8 props in one. We had to keep the weight down so it was easy to use. It was a functioning prop. The light on it had to light. It had to fire. There's a lot of elements to it that were mechanical, which always makes it a lot more challenging. Because so many of these props were from different places and different eras, we tried to get some things to look very different. I think there's an overall look to the film that's reflected in the props.